So I wasn't expecting to record TEW today, but there's two reasons why I am. Reason number one is because I'm trying to fill in some other content outside of WWE 2K. And reason number two is, again, this is a part of the bigger picture. And because this is a part of the bigger picture, I enjoy painting pictures for y'all and figuring out where we left off. But I also enjoy this setup so much that giving you guys some updates here and there of what's going on, it makes life all that much better because it shows how even at this point how interested and how entertained I am and invested I am into this save. So there's that. And is Mickey Star on vacation? He's supposed to be on vacation. He's supposed to be on vacation, so I guess I gotta send him away. I thought I sent him on vacation. Yeah, I thought I sent him on vacation, but I guess I didn't. Explain the story. Last time, Wildman and I fought for the US title. Now it will be for the World's Championship. Ew. Well, my apologies. I didn't realize that we were that close to the end time. Yeah. So maybe we cut this down, cut that back a minute, and we'll cut Sam and Mr. Noro back a minute. And now we are at exactly 125 minutes for the show. So, actually, I think there might be someone that I signed to a one-day deal. Yes. Is that it? Honestly, it looks like it is. So, we will move on. But what I was going to say was I wasn't expecting Alex Pierce. I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting Alex Pierce to do as good as he did, but that's just me. Now, this might be a little bit random because Jack Boyd was never in the All Star team, but he has just been recruited to join the All Star team because, well, honestly, the main reason is because Vincent Morris, who is the prospect of the All Star team, Vincent Morris isn't really somebody that I can invest in because he's still developing as far as stamina is concerned, and his stamina is nowhere close to where it needs to be for him to be in a featured match. And honestly, Jack Boyd has been with me for long enough to where if I don't give him something, it may make more sense just to let him go because, it's just. Oh, yeah, Joey Margarita's Dane Kidd's manager. Um, because at this point, he's been with me for so long that if I don't give him something and test him out at least, it would make more sense just to let him go. So it's more like they recruited somebody to replace Ray Kingman, and the person they recruited was Jack Boyd because Jack has not done much since coming to Supreme. So this is his opportunity to be given a little bit more. And that's what he's being given here, being featured with the Pangracios as one of within one of the more premier rivalries in Supreme. Artie Goldstein took over for Chaim. Chaim Silverman finally retired. And now Dread, Madman, and Tex Montana are the focus because Wildman is already the world champion. So the reality is, I think to a degree, Wildman is going to be on his own. He's still going to be managed by Artie Goldstein, which is ironic because Artie Goldstein was his manager in Boston, but he's not going to be managed by Artie as much as he was managed by Che. I don't know. Well, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with that. But either way, the Dread, best in ring performance thus far. I think maybe penciling Dread in as somebody that can move over to Larry Grubbs might be better because Larry Grubbs has done a fucking masterful job with Max Fury. So I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But either way, Richie, I skipped over it because I was so fixated on Jack Boyd, but I was focused on the fact that Ray Kingman left the All-Star team, and now basically Jack Boyd took his spot in the All-Star team, and instead of being hurt or offended, Ray Kingman just says, I'm glad you guys could find somebody else to brainwash to take my spot, but how about a tag team match? You two versus me and a partner at the August big time event. Mind you, right now, Ray Kingman doesn't have a partner, so it would be 2-on-1 for the time being until he finds a partner. But I do have somebody in mind. Shane Wayne actually makes his debut in I don't know why I keep calling myself AEW. I'm not AEW. I'm Supreme Wrestling. But Shane Wayne makes his debut. I guess him and Lana don't have good or bad chemistry. I mean, I guess maybe he doesn't need the manager, but I also think that getting him over a little bit more would be ideal because I like Shane Wayne a lot. But I'm starting to think maybe figuring out another direction might be the best, like it was with Luis Montero and Slater White, as Luis Montero and Slater White were not together. If you go back a year ago, Slater White was with Rocky Cosentino and Myron Smith in the Lamberti family, and Luis Montero debuted alongside Dexter Priceweather as someone who I had a different plan with, and I was only going to use in one territory, but now they're in a tag team, and I actually just want to point out they got similar outfits on, similar colored outfits, and though the lounge lizard of linguistics may not fit Luis Montero and Slater White as managers, but as a manager, but I think that I'm starting to get very comfortable with the tag team, to be honest with you, which is something that was going to be difficult for me, because I don't necessarily like. I'm getting comfortable with the idea of someone like Paris Vibert beating Sid Streets because it would take away Sid Streets' popularity. And I don't like taking away popular guys' popularity. I just like them being up top. But the reality of the situation is, with how this company is now, you got people like Ace McQueen and Blackjack and Rocky Streets and Hagar and even Aries that are at the top of the mountain, but they're suffering from time decline. Meaning the popular people, for the most part, are struggling to maintain their status as top guys because they are not in their peak and they're on their way out rather than their way to the apex. So with that being said, I should be using people like Rocky Streets, Hagar, Ace and Blackjack to put over the guys that are a little bit a few steps below them, because it would allow me to have people like Luis Montero and Slater White who are in their early to mid 20s, and Sid, who's in his mid 20s. It would allow them to be guys that could be planned for the top, for the future, and moved up in place of the guys who are struggling and on time decline. There was no there was no chance in hell that Paris Vibert was going to beat Sid Streets, but this is actually the start of something with Sid, and the start of something with Sid is The start of what we're gonna do with Sid is that's what I keep forgetting. Okay, that's I gotta do that in a second. The start with something with Sid is that Sid is gonna be taking a step back out of the forefront of Supreme because Sid has been the featured star from 1979 till 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago because he went from challenging world champion Mickey Starr and being the premier rival to Mickey Starr and Ray Kingman in 1979 to the premier feud, the one everybody's talking about in 1980 with Aries, and then finding his way back to the world title, feuding with Ray Kingman, finally winning the world title and becoming world champion, and then slowly but sure, then running with the running with the world title. But now it's his time to step back out of the world title picture because he's been the focus of the company for a year and a half, almost 2 years. Oh, actually, almost 3 years to be fair. Almost 3 years. So it's time for him to step back because the reality is, the longer he stays in the picture, in the main as the main focus, in my opinion, the more likely it is that he's going to be pushed out of the top babyface role and into the top heel role. So Mickey Starr needs to be slotted back in as the franchise and the focus because Mickey Starr has not been the focus. I mean, the reality of the situation is Mickey Starr. I know we'll talk about this segment in a second because this is going to be Sid's first feud outside of the world title picture, which is something that I I wrote down plans, but to say that I came up with ideas for Sid, I didn't. Basically, Mickey Starr has been in a tag team, and even though the tag team feud that he was in with Sam Strong and Rick Rumble against the Flames finally turned heel for the first time in 4 years. They turned against Mickey Starr, broke up Team Supreme. It was the hottest, or one of the hottest feuds in Supreme Wrestling. But it's hard to say Mickey Starr himself in a tag team was the premier face of Supreme, and the world champion was not. That's where now Sam Strong is in the U.S. title is in the U.S. title tournament to crown the Sam Strong is in the U.S. title tournament to crown the new U.S. champion. Mickey Starr is back vying for the world title against Wildman Sullivan. Wildman Sullivan is the world champion. The fact of the matter is, Mickey Starr has not went for the world title since early 1980. So he's been out of the world title picture for over a year. So, and Mickey Starr is the figurehead of the company. So now the figurehead is coming back. It's like Ric Flair being out of the world title picture in Crockett Promotions WCW and then coming back. That's what we have here with Mickey Starr. And that's where Sid is, instead of doing what I've done with pretty much everybody else in our picture. Well, actually, Ray Kingman didn't go to the tag team division. Just anytime Mickey Starr drops the world title, he goes to the tag team division, which is weird. Well, actually, Mickey Starr only dropped the world title once. Oh, yeah, because the last time he was tag team champion with Rick Rumble, he was still world champion. Okay, that makes sense. But now that you got the bigger picture, this is why Luke Curtis and Kimberly Evans are going to be feuding with Sid. Kimberly is Luke's manager or girlfriend or whatever you want to call it. And Luke is finally getting something to give him a little bit something to do since he showed up in Supreme. I was going to have him feud with Tommy Gabriel, but it's like I was going back and forth on the idea of he just debuted. Is it too soon to put him in a feud? Should I give him some wins first and then put him in a feud? But, I mean, the reality is I don't need to. I can slow build the feud with him and Sid, give him a few wins, give him some wins, and then eventually get him into a feud with Sid. I don't have to get him into a feud with Sid like that. You know what I mean? Like, at the next pay-per-view, it doesn't have to be him versus Sid. Because it doesn't have to be where next week Sid Streets interrupts, gets him and Luke Curtis, yada yada yada. The reality is, what could happen is Athena is feuding with any Stardust, and eventually Athena could go with Kimberly Evans, and that could be what sparks the feud with him and Sid Streets, because Athena is Sid's wife, much like Kimberly is Luke Curtis's fiance, so it could be married couples feuding with each other on Supreme. But what I'm saying is, I finally just said, you know what? If I'm not gonna put him, if I don't put him in a feud soon, I'm never gonna put him in a feud. And putting him in a feud with Sid Streets is probably the best possible thing for him, especially because it is something where, like I said, I don't have to go right away and book them in a match in August. I could book them in a match in September. I could keep them going until October, whatever the case is. But also, there's other options because of Kimberly and Athena. Speaking of the women's division, Ruby Burke gets another win. Ruby Burke, I'm pretty sure, is actually undefeated since coming to Supreme. And the reality of the situation is, maybe getting her something else to do would not be the worst thing in the world, because, maybe getting her something else to do would not be the worst thing in the world, because putting her in a match with any Stardust and just having her lose to the women's champion would kind of be like, okay, you're stunting her momentum now. You know what I mean? But putting her against, I'm really struggling to figure out what other heels are in the company, because Annie Stardust is the main heel, but, well, I could put her against Kimberly Evans, to be fair, and get Kimberly a win. Because if if Kimberly and Luke are going to be feuding with Sid and Athena, that would make sense. Honestly, that would actually be a perfect thing to do. But now Wildman Sullivan explains what we saw last week, and since you guys weren't here, Mickey Starr thinks he can jump the line, and just because he's not busy anymore dealing with the Flames, he could jump in and say he wants a shot at my world title. He wants to be first in line. Well, he's not first in line. Hollywood is first in line. Madman McManus dealt with Mickey Starr and gave him the answer. But if the time comes around when Mickey Starr wants a title, I've beaten everyone else, and Mickey, you'll just be another notch in my belt. And now, as we spoke about it earlier, Sam Strong is in the U.S. title tournament. The reason why we're doing a U.S. title tournament is because Wildman Sullivan was U.S. champion, and it was champion versus champion, title for title, at Supreme Challenge, with Sid Streets against Wildman Sullivan, and Wildman finally was the one to take down Sid Streets, and Wildman won the world title, which meant he vacated the United States Heavyweight Championship after 250 days plus as champion. Wildman Sullivan vacated the U.S. title, and now we are looking for the new United States champion, and Sid Streets advances in the tournament, defeating Mr. Noro. I'm impressed by how well Noro did. I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting Noro to do as well as he did, but it's impressive to see how good he did. But Sam Strong advances either way, and Sam Strong advances against... we got the... Here's another story. The other story is that at the pay-per-view back at Supreme Challenge, it was supposed to be the blow-off match, an 8-man tag team match. The Flames on one side with Brooklyn Punk and Romeo Hart against Rick Rumble, Mickey Starr, Sam Strong, and the Max Patriot. The Max Patriot went on a radio broadcast last year and badmouthed the Brooklyn Punk. The two of them, I believe, worked together in an APWF before they went to Florida. But they weren't working together at that time, which is weird in my opinion, that they would bash each other, that he would bash him when they don't work together, but they have worked together in the past, I'm pretty sure. But the babyface side was unchanged. It was Mickey Starr, it was Rick Rumble, it was Sam Strong, and the Max Patriot. The heel side fell apart a week before the pay-per-view. On Showcase, Romeo Hart was building up the match, or was building up the show. He was building up the 8-man tag, and had a match and ended up getting a herniated spinal disc in his back and is now going to miss about 8 months. So Romeo Hart was the first out of the picture. And then the Brooklyn Punk was the next one out of the picture because the Brooklyn Punk got injured with a swollen maritime elbow and missed the 8-man tag. So I had to replace Brooklyn Punk and Romeo Hart, even though Romeo Hart had a history with Rick Rumble, former tag team partners. Romeo Hart joined up with the Flames and turned his back on Rick Rumble, and there was untapped potential with that because Romeo Hart and Rick Rumble had not had a singles match yet to settle their score. But now that's a question of what happens next, because the Flames blamed weakness. The Flames blamed weakness on Romeo Hart because Romeo Hart basically said he called Rick Rumble his mentor. He said how hurt he was that Rick Rumble chose to bring them into this. He blamed Rick Rumble, not himself. But the Flames called Romeo Hart weak for calling Rick Rumble his mentor. Point is, everything else was settled at Supreme Challenge, but not the feud between Max Patriot and Brooklyn Punk, as Brooklyn Punk again cost Max Patriot, this time against Madman McManus. As Madman McManus advances in the tournament, and in his side of the tournament, he will be versing Sam Strong. Ironically enough, Madman takes out Mickey Starr and advances to fight Sam Strong in the tournament. The other guys in the tournament are Knight Rider, Marcus McKing, Ray Kingman, and Angus McLeod. That match with Angus McLeod and Ray Kingman should be one of the better matches featured on any broadcast, because those are two of the very best in Supreme Wrestling. And now we move to one of the reasons why I decided to do this. And one of the reasons why I decided to do this is in January 1979 at King of the Squared Circle, Rocky and Dusty fought the Flames for the tag titles, and the match ended in tragedy because Dusty Streets ended up with a broken neck. Of course, the Flames kept the belts because of the injury, but the fact of the matter is, I was not expecting Dusty Streets to end up with a broken freaking neck. And Dusty Streets and Rocky, since Dusty returned in January 1981, have only teamed together twice. The story to go along with Dusty Streets and Rocky not teaming together is the fact that Dusty is hesitant to team with his father because of the fact that the last time he teamed with his father, he broke his neck. He's second-guessing himself. He fears getting back in the ring in the tag team setting because he fears being unsure of himself. You know, he fears being worried about injuring himself again. You know, he doesn't blame the Flames for the injury, but what he does worry about is it happening again. But speaking of the Flames, I actually forgot about this. Hollywood steps up though, and he talks about the fact that he is getting a world title shot, but he gives the fans a little bit of story time. For those who may not remember, in 1980, the last time he met Wildman Sullivan was during Wildman's U.S. title reign, and Hollywood Mike Kinsey, actually dropped the title to Wildman Sullivan. So he lost the last time he was against Wildman, And now he gets a rematch, a second chance against Wildman per se. As he is Wildman's first challenge for the world title. And this match, and now we start with Dusty and Dusty and Teddy. It is the Flames versing the Streets. So I wasn't penalized for the length. It's the fact that the storyline just started, pretty much. Disappointing end, but again, we're not focused on a good rating for one show. We're focused on the bigger picture and getting good ratings for multiple shows. And maybe, just maybe, it should have been Joey instead of Teddy. Not to say that Joey's not to say that Joey's that much better, but but I think overall with the U.S. title picture, with the U.S. title tournament coming together, with Dread being honestly ridiculously impressive because of his great chemistry with Daryl Romine. Shane Wayne officially debuting, Sid Street starting his next chapter, and everything coming together slowly. I think with other people being featured on the show, like honestly, like Ray Kingman or maybe Mike Kinsey being in action or something to that effect, it could have helped the show. But again, it's about the bigger picture. It's about where we're going, not where we're at now. And I think that's what some people forget about with this game. It doesn't matter getting good ratings every show. It just matters if the big picture, if what you're trying to accomplish pays off, because that's what I had a hard time with figuring out when I would play this game early on. It's that I would just do things for the sake of doing things. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a direction. I didn't have, I would just do shows for the sake of doing shows and seeing how much I can get through in a span of a day, as opposed to having a plan and a direction with where I could just be talking about what's going on. And honestly, I could just be talking about what's going on and saying, oh, Ruby Burke could fight Kimberly Evans because Kimberly's going to be with Luke Curtis and Sid Streets, and that makes sense. Shane Wayne needs to get over because he's not over yet. Or, Richie and Jack Boyd and why they're together. There's everything has a reason here. Everything has a reason here. So the fact that we did a little bad for one show is not a big deal. Because everything has a reason. And that's the most important thing. If you want to see more from Supreme and where this payoff is going, let me know down in the comment section below, or also you can leave a like, subscribe to the channel, because Wrestling Express is the only place for it. And with that being said, I'm done for the day. And if you want to see more unique content like this, outside of WWE, outside of the realm of WWE 2K, let me know, because I'm really trying to figure out other content that I could put up on the channel. With that being said, though, that is it from me, and this time I'm serious. I will see you in the next one.